Alright, so welcome to staff development today. We're doing some PLC training. We have A team has recently gotten back from some solution tree training, and what we got to listen to a little bit of Rick DeFore talk about why PLCs are important, and got some great resources from him. We sat down as a group to break up and design some activities for you guys that we'll think that'll help translate this into some great learning today. So without any further ado, here we go. All right, so as we get in today, here's what we want to do. So we need to cover our what, we need to cover our where, and we need to cover our why. And how we're going to do that with just like what we want to see in our classrooms. We don't just want to have our learning objective put up there. It needs to have some reasons. So we're going to be able to incorporate all of our team member strengths. We're going to hold students accountable for their learning and build meaningful relationships. Sounds really good, right?
It does sound good.
All right, so back to that learning objectives. So as we go through this, we're going to be able to answer these questions just like what teachers are asking their kids to do in the classroom. So we're also going to discuss the three big ideas from the PLC framework that we've gotten that we want to share, that we want to make sure that it's a staple as we go through our actual PLC meetings, right? So these things that we're definitely going to build on throughout this program today. All right, so to start this off, we're going to get in groups of about 4 to 6. I don't care what number you are. I don't care if you're with ELAR or if you're with math. Sit with your friends for this one. But we're going to watch a video, and then we're going to take a sticky. And on the sticky, you're going to write down your thoughts about the video, what comes to mind. It's going to be a little bit of a comedy, but definitely you're going to be able to relate to it. So on the sticky within your group, everybody needs to have one. We're going to write down some of your thoughts that come to your mind after you watch the video.
Be a lot better off if I would have studied more when I was growing up, you know? But you know where it all went wrong was the day they started the spelling bee. Because up until that day I was an idiot, but nobody else knew, you know? And the spelling bee day, popped up. All right, kids, up against the wall. It's time for public humiliation. Spell a word wrong, sit down in front of your friends. That's great for little egos. Hey, look at me, I'm a moron. I wasn't even close. I was using numbers and stuff. That's why I admired that kid who spelled it wrong on purpose so he could sit down, He knew he wasn't going to win, so why stand here for 3 hours? First round, cat, K-A-T, I'm out of here. And as he passed you, I know there's 2 T's. I remember my teacher asked me, Brian, what's the I before E rule? I before E, always. What are you, an idiot, Brian? Well, apparently. So she explains it, no, Brian, it's I before E, except after C, and when sounding like A, it's a neighboring way. And on weekends and holidays and all throughout May, and you'll always be wrong, no matter what you say. It's a hard rule. It's a rough rule. Plurals were hard, too. Brian, how do you make a word a plural? You put an S. Put an S at the end of it. When? On weekends and holidays. Oh, Brian, now, let me show you. So she asked this kid who knew everything, Erwin, what is he plural for ox? Oxen. The farmer used his oxen. Brian, what? Brian, what's the plural for box? Boxing. I bought 2 boxes of donuts. No, Brian, no. Let's try another one. Erwin, what is he plural for goose? Geese. I saw a flock of geese. Brian, what? Brian, what's the plural for moose? Moosing! saw a flock of moose. There are many of them, many much moose. Out in the woods, in the woods. The meat's wanting food. Food is eating, is it? The meat's wanting food and in the wooding, is it? And the food in the wooding, is it? Brian. You're an imbecile. Imbecile. Are you speaking German, Brian? Jermaine Jackson. Jackson 5, Tito. Brian, what the hell are you talking about? Oh, no, really. I think the worst day was the day the science project was due. Waking up that morning, that was fun, huh? Your head would pop off your pillow. Oh, no. That's due today. I had 9 months to work on it. I did nothing. I have a cardboard box of boxing. And you'd show up, you're scared because you don't have anything good, and you find out all the other kids, their parents made theirs for them. I hated that, you know? They're backmen on flatbed trucks. One kid with a volcano. He didn't have to zip up his own pants, but he built a volcano. You had to swing that. I don't know what to do for my project, so I brought in a paper cup filled with dirt, just hoping she'd know I'm an idiot and just walk right on past me. As long as I was holding something. What do you have there, Brian?
We'll go get one if you're fine.
It's a cup of dirt. Just put an F on there and let me go. Well, explain it. Well, it's a cup with dirt in it. I call it cup of dirt. You should move on now. You should go ahead and move on. Head on down the line there.
Alright, so after watching the video, what are some of the things that stuck out? What are some things that you were able to relate to?
Nobody likes to when you're pointed out that you can't do something.
Yeah, you don't like to be pointed out. Obviously, our comedian did a good job at illustrating what the kid could possibly be feeling at.
Yeah.
One of the things I like from the video is every kid wants to act like that too. It promotes something inside them that's not generally who they are, but when you're pressured, stuff just comes out. Especially with us being in middle school, we can definitely release a valve that's been pressured up for a little while, right? Any other takes from it?
Teacher didn't give up on him.
Yeah, teacher definitely didn't give up. She had a intent, right?
Yeah.
And again, it was a spoof, but her intent could have definitely been a little softer, right?
Sure. Yeah.
And everybody in our staff has done a good job at that. I just thought this would be a great little way of breaking the ice and get our brain going here a little bit.
Yeah.
All right, so the next little thing we're going to talk about is Rick DeFore. Now, Rick is the mastermind, if you will, behind a lot of this PLC grouping in education. He's done, you name it, research and putting together quality discussion topics, trainings for, administration and teachers to really start developing this within our own organization. So here's what Rick has to say for us. He defines educations of who are committed to working collaboratively, and this is a key word here, collaboratively, an ongoing process, another key word, ongoing, of collectively inquiring and action research in order to achieve better results for students as they serve. PLCs operate under the assumption that the key to improved learning for students is continuous job-embedded learning for educators. So there's a bunch of information. That's kind of why I put it in red here. You got to be able to break this down and commit to it. Two of the hardest things to do is we need to continue to do this all year round. Obviously, at the beginning of the year, like right now, we're all gung-ho. We're ready to go. Let's do this. Let's make it happen. And then after our first assessment, when the numbers come back in, we're like, not so gung-ho anymore. And then that's when this really needs to take hand. This is when this process needs to come forward. When we don't like what just happened, when we're not appreciating sitting with our administrations and going over data and going, why and what. This is when you sit with your team and you figure out the why and the what to make it better. Okay, so here let's listen to Rick himself kind of give us his point of view. All right, as Rick's talking here, let's go ahead and just jot down some notes that come to mind as well. There's no set standard here of what you need to take. Just see as you write down and as we continue to engage in some other learning, as we start sitting with our teams here in a minute, if what you wrote down just based on what Rick says matches anything that we get into.
For those who question why we should have professional learning communities, I think the answer is relatively simple. There's never been greater consensus about what it's going to require of educators in order to improve student learning in all of their schools. Virtually all of the leading educational researchers in North America and all of our professional organizations have agreed that our best hope for improving schools is to focus on developing the capacity of the people within the schools. There's just been an international study done by the McKinsey Group by Sir Michael Barber where they looked at the highest performing school systems in all of the world. And they said that the one thing that those systems had in common was an understanding that a system can only be as good as the people within it. And so in those high-performing systems, there was a conscious effort made to develop the capacity of those people to understand that the only way we're going to improve schools is by improving the quality of the instruction that students receive every single day through the collective efforts of their teachers and school leaders. So to those who had asked the question, why PLCs, I would ask, why not? What else is out there that has such universal consensus in terms of its power to make a difference in the lives of students? The biggest obstacles that are interfering with schools moving from traditional schools to professional learning communities aren't really a lack of resources or some of the other external factors that we might point to. The biggest obstacle is overcoming our own traditions in the mythology that persists in education. Mythology that says things like the way to improve schools is by hiring heroic individual teachers who close their door and make a difference in the lives of their students and are sort of indifferent to what else is going on around the school. A mythology that says the real purpose of schooling is merely to give students the opportunity to learn rather to ensure that they learn. So there are some long-standing traditions in American education that we must confront and we must overcome them if we are going to succeed in becoming professional learning communities and making a difference in the lives of our students. There are now over 150 different schools on the All Things PLC website, and every one of them represents a tremendous success story. It's hard to identify a single story that stands out, but if I had to pick one, I would probably go with the school district in Sanger, California, which was one of the first districts in California to go into program improvement and come under state sanctions. Led by the superintendent, Mark Johnson, who was recently named the National Superintendent of the Year by AASA, the district began to implement the PLC process district-wide. They adopted a mantra of no blaming the kids. What can we, the educators, do in order to create the conditions that will help our students learn at higher levels? There were certain things that were expected to happen in all of the schools. Teachers were expected to collaborate, to develop a guaranteed curriculum, to monitor student learning through common assessments, to have plans of intervention when students were struggling, and to have all of the educators throughout the system help one another learn in order to be more effective in whatever their respective responsibilities were, whether it was teaching or leading a building or leading a district. The results have been nothing short of phenomenal. It's one of the highest achieving districts in California in terms of the progress that it's made over the last 4 or 5 years. And Michael Fullen, who's looked at effective school systems all around the world, picked Sanger as one of 4 school systems in the world that he wanted to highlight in a video of successful district-wide implementation of school improvement. So there are many, many stories that warm our hearts and keep us inspired and motivated to continue doing our work. But Sanger is one that's particularly touching. They have over 80% poverty, 80% minority, and yet every year student achievement is improving in that district and every school in the district. It's a wonderful story.
All right, so obviously based on Rick's quick little video there, he has 3 big ideas that he'd love for us to follow, and I'm a huge component of them as well. So we want to focus on student learning. We want to be results orientated, and we got to collaborate the culture of this constantly. And I like how, yellow is different. These two are going to work together, but the one constant that we got to continue to work on more than these is to make it work and be a part of our system, right? This isn't, on a team of 4, I don't need 3 of us to be on board and one just kind of lone fish, right? That one lone fish is going to destroy our culture of making this work. So part of today is not just giving you the ideas of what we need to do in our PLCs, but definitely hope give you an understanding that this isn't just something new because we need to check a box. This is definitely something new to get students and ourselves as teachers working for a common goal with efficiency and to still have some fun with it and to ignite our brains again to create and design what's best, not only for those kids, but what's best for our school, right? I think we definitely get caught up in let's just keep doing what we're doing because it seems to be working. And then in essence, I guess you can say there's nothing wrong with that, but there is something wrong with that. I know as my kid, I want him to be challenged, right? And so if he or she has got, this 90 average and it seems like, hey, everything's moving along great, boy, I really would like that teacher or that school to go, that's still not good enough. But in a good, nurturing, challenging way. So that's kind of where we're going to go from here. All right? So also while we were there, we got into, from Solution Tree, they also gave us some stuff from a man named Tim Brown. He's got 28 years of experience in the education ranging from K through 12. It's from turning low-income schools into high-achieving schools, right? So what you need to take away from that is regardless if it meets our demographics or not, it means he's taking some kids, some areas that are not functioning and turning them into functioning. So what he has and what we liked and what drew us is this thing called BHAGs. So when you're sitting in a room full of thousands of administrators and teachers and they get on there and they talk about BHAGs, definitely got our attentions. And what they're talking about is big, hairy, audacious goals, right? So the essence here of what he's trying to get us to understand is don't just have a goal, and then it doesn't just need to be big, and it doesn't need to have big and be caught on fire, right? It needs to be all of those things. And if it is one of those things, it doesn't need to be everything that you do in that PLC group. You need to take 1 or 2 things that you want to see your students and your team do that year, and that is your BHAG, right? Where a lot of people have gotten a little confused on this is they take it and every little standard they do, every TEK's a BHAG. Nope. You want to take that into like your power standards, right? What is the most important thing that you want to see from your students? And then as a team leader and as an administrator, what is the most important thing I want to see from my team, right? So just take 1 or 2 seconds here, a little bit longer than that, and don't think about what your team leader would say. Think about what you want. What is your BHAG for your students right now? And write that down for me. And if you are a team leader, what is your BHAG for your team? All right, now that you've had some time, what's a BHAG you got?
Well, I came up with a big goal. The 6th grade students in math, they're not so good at problem solving. And at first I was thinking about picking knowing their multiplication, their math facts, because it's such a big thing, but that's not really a goal.
Right.
That's different. I don't know, it felt different. But one of the things that we do work on is word problem, like problem solving, and so we use the CUBES method. CUBES is an acronym. So I'd really like if I had like a big goal for the problem solving method, for the CUBES method to be just second nature.
Love it. And I like how you distinguish the difference of what's probably an expectation and something they're going to learn regardless, to definitely, this is the goal of what I want those things to be. So great job there. All right. So now here's a little bit of fun. So I had us do that for us to understand. Now, team leads, I want you to take a piece of paper, right? And I want you to write down at least 2 BHAGs that you want to see from your team. What are the goals for your team, right? The BHAG parts of it. And then I want you to write down 2 that you want from your students. Obviously, the 1 or 2 that you just used right there is totally acceptable, right? And I'm going to give you about 5 minutes to do that. When the time is up, I'm going to have you sit with your team at this point. So now we're going to be moving all around. We're actually going to sit with our team and we're going to share it out. And I want to see how close you are with your team leader. And then if you're not, now you have, well, you've got a great foundation of where you guys need to start hammering out where you need to be, where you want to go, and how you need to get there. So this exercise, definitely don't answer to where you think your team leader wants or where your administration wants to go. Just be open and honest, right? And then when you sit, we'll give you a nice little discussion time to figure that part out. All right? Go. And then on that, is that just something we can just continue? Or does it need to we need to show that?
All right, so you're going to do this, then we'll move on.
I think, right?
Sure. Okay. Okay. I think I'm good.
All right. So now let's sit and discuss, right? So I have some and you have some. So as a team leader, one of my main goals that I want for my team is I want a major initiative after maybe 2 or 3 sit downs of developing our norms, developing our culture within our team about our expectations. I want to see some extreme ownership of it. That would be a BHAG for me.
Okay. One of the things that I used to do on one of my old teams was we would meet and kind of calendar a lot. And while that's useful, it really doesn't help in terms of the collaboration. So I put down from like a not data related goal, but it said talk about how to teach versus what to teach. Because that way I could, I really do get to hear what you do or whoever versus when you do it.
Exactly. So I love that. And so that kind of leads into my other BHAG, right? My other extreme goal that I'd love to see my team do is to start reaching out to each other on their strengths. Notice your weakness and immediately want to go to your team to figure out how to make it better. And not just for your students, personally, right? I would love the desire to be better to be a goal, not just I have to do it because our administration's bought into this PLC thing, right?
Right.
You have any other ones?
Yeah, the other one I was trying to think of numbers, and so I was trying to think of what kind of achievement gap, and so not being able to remember what the school has or what group is lower, I kind of went with a certain one, and I said close the gap between economically disadvantaged and not economically disadvantaged. If I had to put a number to it, I could say 10%, but I think the big goal would just be to literally close it.
Sure.
Not get closer, but to close it.
Yeah, realistically, I love that you're ambitious, but you're also rational about what needs to happen. And definitely, I like that you picked that, knowing that Rick and Tim, these guys have directed a lot of that their energy into that process. Where here at our school, we're more about probably 30% is with economically disadvantaged population, but it's still a huge deal, right? We can have the same number, if you will. You can take out disadvantage as far as economics and affluent. There's still a large amount of problems even with that set. Not money, but you can still get the same type of blocks, if you will, as far as gaps of learning because of a whole different set of issues, but it still relates to getting a bigger gap in our numbers, right? So even though we can pinpoint demographic as far as economic or not, just pinpointing one and getting after it. So I appreciate that. All right. All right, so as we continue here, as we mentioned earlier, we were going to talk about those three big ideas and how all students are our students. And when you talk about all students are all students, power standards and building relationships are what our admin team came together and thought, this is what all of our students mean. Doesn't matter if it's the ELAR department, science department, history, or math, if we're working on making sure that the standards, the TEKS that they're covering is truly what we want from them and building relationships, the sky's the limit for our kids. Instead of sitting there worrying about just the STAR test. And did we cover everything we needed to cover for this district assessment, right? And then the next part was utilizing all team members' strengths. I think this is easily said, but extremely hard to do, right? We get pride in the way. We get a little over management, what we like to call a little micromanagement going on. But if you'll level and tier your instruction, you can actually do that with in your teams as well. You can level and tier your strengths of your team. Now you want to grow that too. If one teacher is extremely good at designing lessons on Google, don't let that be their only strength. Definitely let them be the creator of it, but then the other four of us, we need to learn that. So let him or her teach us that. Don't just give them the charge of it. I think that's one way to grow it. It's one thing to go, all right, you're the best at that, you stick with it for the whole year. That's boring. That's definitely going to lead to a failed culture. Tutoring and flex grouping. This has to be one of my favorite things of late that we've been doing that got introduced to me, and I loved it. And what that is simply put, science is a really good way to do this. If you do a science lab together and your lab rocked it, how you just presented it, maybe the flow of how you did it, even though when y'all planned it out, it was all the same, but the way you did it in your classroom, your kids just rocked it, but mine came up a little bit short. Sitting with our team the next day and talking about why did yours rock it, mine didn't, and then the possibility, you know what, let me take your class, right, and you take mine, you rock that out for them again, and I will I'll do an extension on what they've already done. And little things like that. It's not this massive new concept and we've got to pre-plan enormously, but it's just enough to where we've taken those kids who missed it and we can really get them going, and the kids who have gotten it and take them to the next level. Then the last of the three big ideas is, how are the students going to be held accountable to this? Again, it's great. We're going to do all this. We're going to flex group. We're going to make it happen. But once you make the kids, the students, hold themselves accountable with a consistent, that's the key word, consistent tool, then they really have some buy-in process. And we have tons of learner tracker tools that we've done and that we'll have on your way out of here. You'll get you some more samples. We have it on our Google Drive, on our shared drive that we already have as our school. Continue to use those, but also the purpose of our PLC, design and develop your own, right? And then always have the kids give you feedback. And you can put that on your learning tracking tool, right? Again, the more teachers look at learning tracking tools as a device to use to enhance versus I gotta check another box because they want me to do one more thing. We're not asking you to do one more thing. We're just asking you to give that to the students to offer you, right? And you'll really find out a huge difference when you can really institute those last two things right there. All right. All right, so to kind of get in back to what we were talking about with power standards, so what do the students need to know? That's when you're developing those power standards within your team. What do I really want them to know in 7th grade Texas history? What's the most important? Don't give up on your favorite lessons or activities. Just make sure that you put it into the power standard. You can put many teaks, you can put several things into that and encompass it and then really drive it to that. Instead of doing the middle school, I gotta go 1, I gotta go 2, 2.2, 2.2a, focus a little bit more and sit down with your group and figure out what it is. What do we want them to know? So what I want you to do in the next 5 minutes is I want you to figure out with your team, and this is just a nice warm up for you to do. Sit down with your team and figure out what would be one of the number one things. What is the number one standard I want them to know? So if I'm history, Texas history, what's the one thing I want them to know? Science in 6th grade, what's the one thing I want them walking out of 6th grade science with? So just take about 5 minutes, jot a couple things down, share it out with your group, and then we'll move on to relationship building.
Go ahead.
So at the core, team accountability is about the promises we make to ourselves and others, promises that underpin 2 critical aspects of the team, commitment and trust. So instead of looking at team norms as just the rules of how we have to act in there, more so, I like what's said here is how are we going to commit to each other and how are we going to stay committed to each other, and then how are those commitments going to be fostered into the process the whole time, or more meaningful norms than, hey, don't be on your phone, do it on time, right? Give me this. Those should just be expectations. Norms are getting into how we're going to do this and build trust and build a culture within ourselves. All right, so here are some 4 critical questions that we feel as an admin team that you need to be asking inside your teams, right? What are the values of making team decisions around them, the critical questions. So within your own group here, I want you to just list 5 good reasons that you think you need to focus on the we of the team. All right? Why focus on the we? And as you're doing that, we're going to actually bounce those ideas off of each other. You're definitely probably going to have some that are the same. You're going to have some that are different. You're going to have some that you most likely agree on. And keeping this paper with all the stuff that we've done so far, the writing downs, is going to be critical that when we go sit down after our development today and we start meeting with our teams and PLC groups to bring these back out and to use them. So, all right. So here are some things that as we set, we were able to define the difference of the group versus the team, right? So a group, members think they're grouped together for administrational purposes only. As cute as that sounds, there's actually several, staff members that believe this. Teams, however, members recognize that their interdependence and understanding both personal and team goals will accomplish everything, right? Here are a couple others. Members are told what to do rather than asked what is the best approach. This is a big one, right? This can happen at first. Sometimes we need to be told what to do, but then we need to have that initiative that after I've been told, how can I now advance on that? Members are cautious about what they say, so no real understanding is there. In other words, I'm not going to step out too far because I don't want to have to do all the work all of a sudden, right? But a team member contributes to the organization and applies their talents regardless of what's asked for them. And also, they this is a big one with me. They practice honest communication, right? This is huge. It's not an excuse for anything. It's how you should. That's a core value. You need to be honest and communicate regularly with everybody at any level about anything, right? They make an effort to understand each other's point of view. Do not confuse that with you like it. They didn't ask you to like their point of view. As a professional, you're just asked to understand it and respect it, and then use it how you need to use it. Communicate with each other how you can talk about it, right? Nobody's asking you, for the back pat here and go, oh, that's such a great idea, and then go bad mouth behind them. That's what tends to happen a bunch. If you don't like it, that's great. Have enough energy, have enough solution to change it, right? Professionally, right? That'll be the key there. All right, so as we have learned throughout our vision statement here at Evans, we have SMART goals. So they need to be specific, measurable, attainable, result-oriented, and time-bound, right? We've already done this, but I put it back in there just to help you as we start sitting down tomorrow, that even though we're doing BHAGs, don't forget about our SMART goal part of it, okay? All right, so when we sit down, just so you guys understand where the admin team is coming from, I need you to establish and monitor clear expectations for your community, right? Don't be on it 1 week and then the next week you're lax, saying, hey, we're not going to meet. You're going to meet. There's an expectation that you're going to have PLCs 2 days a week regardless. You can have them more, right? That's totally up to you and how you plan this out. However, the expectation here at Evans is that you will at least do this twice a week. You need to coach for effective building the capacity of others within your learning community and collaborate student learning and the results. You guys know we're also a data-driven school here. So this is going to be a very easy one for you, right? Simply get the data, and when you sit down together, figure out the best use of that data and how to build on it. And then we need to support the implication of how we can not only sustain what we've done, but how to build it. All right, so here's a couple of little things that we can do on our own to help. Here's just a couple of extra guidelines for you guys. And again, remember there's a copy of this on Google, so it's on the shared drive under our teams, so you can always look back at these things. But so if I want to find a way to get ESL, GTs, or core students, or any other students that have a learning obstacle, the same effort needs to be put forth on the team. So again, if I have GT students, that doesn't mean they get everything perfectly, right? And all you have is core. That doesn't mean that you and I can't get along. In fact, we probably get along better than any of the other two differences. We can bounce great ideas off of each other. All right, so even though I may have these different types of classes, the bottom line is we got to take the excuses out. It doesn't matter that you have more 504 students or you have more, GT students. It just doesn't matter. They're all the same students, and we all need to get after them the same way. Building a relationship is going to be the key component of that with your own students. And some of the eggs are going to be a lot harder to break. Just don't make sure that building the relationship part is done as a team, so you're not there alone doing this. All right. So how we're going to utilize all of our team members' strengths, right? Again, this is where leveling and that team tiering can definitely help, right? We are going to have unbelievable ideas. A very big key component for this is from a pre-assessment. And this is where each team member can offer how we can assess where the students even are before we start teaching our lesson. It's almost kind of like backwards designing a little bit on those pre-assessments. Kind of see where we are. And then when we have most of the team members there designing one of those, it can definitely jump in for us as far as how and what our kids can give us. What do we know when students have learned it? Obviously, that's our assessments. We're definitely figuring that out through our assessments, whether it's formal or informal, however we're doing that. How do we know when the students don't get it? What we're doing here, after we've had those assessments and we've looked at some of our data, we need to offer some form of intervention. That can look like a lot of things. Again, if you're sitting with your PLC group, that's where those interventions are going to come in place. and when we were talking about tiering the instruction. Again, maybe that's a great flex grouping opportunity, right? Maybe that intervention it's not just tutoring. Don't get caught up in, I'll just get you in the morning. Really sit with your group and figure out how that intervention needs to look. That intervention could simply be, again, Mr. Rogers going into his class for one, and I take his class, and Susie gets the third class, and we form this operation. So that's another good way. And then the one that I think that we don't do enough of is how do we know, or how do we respond when kids already know it? Instead of just checking it off going, yep, they passed the test, they did a good job. Offer some extension based in there. So offering those extensions are definitely going to take charge. They can happen when you're in your PLC groups to design that extension to when you're definitely planning your weeks out. Don't forget that one. This can be fun. The extension part should probably be fun. Something that's going to allow them to show mastery of it besides something paper-based again and color in bubbles, for a standardized test. Be efficient and teach the ways that students best learn, not how you want it done. That's another hard thing to do as a teacher. Life happens, and at a point want the easiest thing to be done. You're not showing a very good character on yourself if that's who you are. I'm not saying you can't have a bad day. I'm not saying you can't even have a bad week. But at the end of the day, we're here for our students and for them to achieve the most. And if you're still trying to connect with some of those tough ones, they're going to see when you're at your lowest as well. So you got to really try to keep yourself built up. And if you'll design things that are fun, there is a little front load, if you will, but it's going to be such a big payoff on the backside. Student accountability, like we mentioned before, the learning tracking tool. Again, developed how you need to do them based on your lessons. That's why I'm not going to offer you hundreds of them right now. You need to kind of develop them with your group. But the benefits and the examples that you can develop, not only with the history team, but from the math team and the science team of ones that have really been good, are going to be extremely beneficial because it holds the students accountable. They get to see immediately before the grade book where they are. Feedback, oh my goodness. Definitely ask those kids. All right, so on the feedback piece of this, the Think, Pair, Shares is a great way, not just as a tool for them on a lesson, but it's also a great way to get feedback from what they did and what they would like to see next. And then you can take that information into your PLC group, and then you have some great information immediately to put into designing or building strategies for the next lesson. All right, so where are we now? So on a piece of paper, complete a team reflection. The team members need to answer this as a team leader too. So there's your challenge. So even if you're not a team leader, I kind of want you to think like one right now. Put your team leader hat on. How would you rate your team? And then, so when you do that, I want you to look at rating the team first, and then ask the next question. I want you to do 3 areas where you think your team can improve. Include how you might lead your teams to make those improvements as well. All right, and then you're going to that's kind of like your exit slip on your way out of here. We have a couple more slides to finish up, but at the end, you'll be able to do those, and on your way out, that'll kind of be your little ticket for us. So here's what hopefully you took away today. Hopefully you understand that all students are ours, and that I got to utilize my team members' strengths, and that I got to have student accountability, right? One other thing hopefully that you got out of this today is that in order to make PLCs work, I've got to be an ultimate team player, whether I'm the team leader or whether I'm just a team member. Okay? Anybody have any questions about today?
Nope.
I appreciate everybody coming. Remember again, your exit slip for the day will be putting a little reflection on there for us. Make sure you sign it. That'll also help you get your credit for your PD today, and I hope everybody has a great day.